Thank you for making time for us today, Rafa. Could you start by just introducing yourself and telling us who you are?
My name is Rafa. I'm a consultant here in Oxleas in all-day psychiatry, and I do all trilogy at the Memorial Hospital and the ECT and RTMS clinics in Queen Mary's Hospital. I've been in Oxleas for a very long time, and today is my last day at work, actually.
Oh, well, it's sad to see you go. But we're here today to talk about your book. And I must admit, I was a bit taken aback by the title when I read it. You're not meant to be happy, so stop trying. Mm-hmm. Which was a bit upsetting for me. But can you explain to us what it's about?
I can see how some people may find the title a bit depressing. In fact, it's provocative on purpose. But essentially the message of the book is that we are not, as a human species, as human beings, we are not really designed, so to speak, if that's the right word, we are not designed to be happy. Happiness is an abstract concept, something that only exists in our minds as an abstract idea, but it has nothing to do with actual human existence, and it certainly has nothing to do with the workings of our brain. Is, as I say, just an abstract thing. Nature, if anything, wants us to be forever anxious and forever unsatisfied and forever on our toes, in order to be and to remain aware of any potential threats out there. So a state of happiness is not a natural thing. And to pursue happiness as a goal is like chasing a ghost. We are never going to get there. And I think the idea that we've been sold through self-help books and inspirational leaders and so on, that if only we do this and that and the other, we'll be happy one day, is counterproductive in the sense that I think it makes people feel, if anything, more inadequate and more of a failure, really, if they keep trying and never get there. And they will, because it's, as I said, it's like chasing a ghost. The 10 trillion nerve connections in our brains do a lot of things. They smell a rose, they plan the cooking of a dish, they love, they remember a summer's day, they plot, they feel fear, they resolve a puzzle, they sing. They do all these things and many more, but they don't know how to make us happy.
If we're not supposed to be happy, and obviously we don't want to be permanently anxious or stressed, what's the sort of happy medium or the alternative to that? How can you manage that?
Well, obviously we need to do whatever we can to make our life as bearable and even enjoyable at times. And I'm certainly not against that. Quite the opposite. And then there are all sorts of things that one can do in terms of acceptance, for instance. And I think that's part of what I'm saying in the book, actually, that by accepting that suffering is an inherent part of a human existence, that actually will make, paradoxically, if you want, our stay in this planet a little more bearable, actually. And by all means, we need to enjoy life whenever we can, and to design our lifestyle and so on in as enjoyable a way as possible, of course. I'm all for that. But what I am against, so to speak, is the idea of happiness as a goal, as an achievable goal, which is simply not translatable into what is the normal human existence.
So it might be better then it might be more realistic to aim for okay or content or somewhere in the middle, and accept that as...
Yes, but I think what we need to, even contentment is a difficult one, because that means satisfaction, that means that you don't move forward, that you are complacent with your status, and then you become again vulnerable to threats and to things going wrong and so on. So even that is a big ask, even that is a big problem. So I suppose it is more a question of, as I was saying, accepting that we have mixed emotions. And in fact, that's how we are. We have mixed emotions all the time. And they are meant to be changeable, and they are meant to come and go like the weather. And in fact, I find it helpful to think of a bad day as a day of bad mental weather, really, that will change, hopefully, tomorrow. And that's how our mind works. And if we come to terms with that, through acceptance and through that kind of mental attitude, I think paradoxically, if anything, one may end up being a happier person, so to speak.
Interesting. So have you got any, I mean, it's probably a big question, but how do you get to that place then in your mind? How do you come to terms with the fact that happiness is not the goal? What sorts of things could you...
Well, through self-compassion and acceptance and so on, and also empathy and sympathy and compassion towards others. Mind you, compassion, as I explain in the book, actually compassion is a type of suffering. Etymologically it means suffering with. But still, I think if one is able to transcend yourself to others and that kind of thing, one may end up being in a place where acceptance of your own feelings and your own difficult emotions and so on becomes less of a torture than it would be otherwise.
So are some personalities more susceptible to unhappiness or discontentment than others?
I think that is the case, to be fair. So I think it wouldn't be accurate for me to say that we are all condemned to the same level of unhappiness in life, whatever happens. That's really not the case. I mean, there are obviously factors that will make us more or less unhappy that are absolutely, I mean, I'm going to almost state the obvious, but luck is an enormous factor in life. Even if everything else is in place, you need to be lucky. And if you are unfortunate enough to have, certain horrible misfortunes and so on, from then on unhappiness may be almost inevitable, really. I mean, nowadays we talk about the concept of personal growth following trauma, and certainly that's something very important and something that will need to be explored for anybody who has suffered a bad trauma and so on. But those things will obviously affect our ability to be happy or otherwise. Wealth, health, and so on, which our ancestors knew that were big factors in our ability to be happy. We seem to have forgotten that. We seem to think that it is within our power to achieve whatever level of happiness we may have by doing this and the other and fulfilling our potential and believing in ourselves, as Hollywood films keep telling us. And I really don't believe that. I think it's the wrong recipe, really. And as I said earlier, perhaps if anything, counterproductive. So those are factors. Personality is also a factor. I can't deny it. And there are people who are more half glass full than others. People who are more extroverted, for instance, or who have a certain type of attributional style when things go right or go wrong. They may be a little more, better equipped to enjoy life than people who are more constantly self-reflective and that kind of inward kind of personality and so on. So those are real factors, yes. But at the end of the day, those factors really mainly channel how we are going to have these mixed emotions that I was talking about earlier. The mixed emotions are inevitable, and everybody will have them. And that's the point that I want to stress, and that sometimes we forget.
So would you say that it is possible to learn this, so that, because if it's sort of nature versus nurture, depending on how you are, it's possible to learn coping mechanisms or techniques to...
Certainly. I mean, that's not what I mainly describe in my book, actually. It's not really a self-help book. In fact, if anything, I dedicate a whole chapter to criticize self-help books. so that's not what I write about mainly. But of course, there are coping mechanisms, and psychotherapy is very helpful on occasions, and so on. And those things will help us cope with the things that life throw at us quite regularly. But as I said earlier, the important thing is not to believe this propaganda we get in popular culture, mainly that if we believe in ourselves, etc., we'll reach a state of psychological bliss in which we can stay indefinitely. That's simply not the case. That's simply not true.
That's interesting. I see what you mean. That that there's this belief that if you behave a certain way or do certain things,
Yes,
that
yes.
you'll attain this happiness.
Yes.
But actually, you shouldn't be. That's not how we're meant to be anyway.
No.
We're meant to have ups and downs.
Yes. We are very much meant to have ups and downs, and also we are meant to be very frequently frustrated. We are meant to have desires, of all sorts, and these desires are more often than not frustrated, really, and that's how life is. And the older you get, the more learn this the hard way, of course. But I find it very irritating that particularly American culture these days, American popular culture, tell us that all we need to do is believe and love, and that's not true. I mean, it's all very well to believe and love, but that's not going to make you happy. Madeira, the quiet and beautiful Portuguese island in the Atlantic, with a wonderful climate and gorgeous volcanic scenery, is as good an image of paradise as any other. In the streets of Funchal, the capital of the island, I once saw in the window of a travel agent a large picture of a golden sand beach and palm trees in a colorful sunset light, with a legend underneath written in Portuguese, "Escape to Paradise." Madeira has many attractions, but being volcanic, it doesn't have the type of natural beach depicted in the travel agent poster. I found the ad perplexing. I thought I was escaping to paradise when I came to Madeira, but it turned out that the inhabitants of Madeira didn't think they were in paradise at all, and felt the need to escape to their own idea of paradise. I am sure that people living by the tropical beach depicted in the travel agent's window also wanted to escape to their own idea of paradise, perhaps to the city in Europe from where I had started.
And so what sorts of people would find the book really interesting, really helpful? Who would you think it's for?
Well, I had a feedback from a person recently, actually somebody who works in the trust, that I found very encouraging, actually, because she sent me an email saying, gosh, this I found it really comforting because I thought I was doing something wrong. I keep reading books to try to make me feel happier, and I never realized that that's the wrong approach, really. So she found the book comforting, actually, which is good. I mean, other than that, I suppose it's a bit of an intellectual exercise to think about these things. And I want to believe that the book is quite readable, actually. So it's not a task to read it, I think.
Well, that's good, and
Yes.
I'll definitely be reading it. So, but where
Thank
can
you.
people get it from?
Mainly from Amazon. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
lovely.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.